Moderators. I am Amanda He, a Research Business Manager at City of Hope Beckman Research Institute. I'm honored and humbled to be here and joined with Laura Pattillo, a Contracts and Grants Specialist in the College of Education at Auburn University. Laura is also the chair of the Departmental Research Administration Collaborate Community Working Group. Thank you, Laura, for your leadership and contribution, which have made this webinar possible. We are very fortunate to have an esteemed panel with us today, Trisha, Jason, and Matt. Trisha Southergill is a senior research administrator in the Office of Sponsored Program at Colorado State University. She has over 15 years of research administration experience, ranging from proposal development, pre-award proposal development management, and award contracting experience, working at both research intensive and predominantly undergraduate institutions. Trisha is past NCURA Region 7 Chair, current member of the NCURA Professional Development Committee, Region 7 Communication Committee Chair, and member of Region 7 Professional Education Development Committee. She holds Master of Public Administration degree from the University of South Carolina and earned her CRA in 2012. Welcome, Trisha. Next, we have Jason Park. Jason is currently the Contracts and Grants Director of the School of Biological Sciences at the University of California, Irvine campus. During his 21-year tenure at UCI, he has also worked in pre- and post-award administration for the School of Medicine and Engineering. Jason is currently serving as chair of Region 6, 2020 Lead Me Program graduate, Lead Me Mentor between 2021 and 2023, and presented at previous NCURA conferences, such as PRA, regional, and annual meetings. Welcome, Jason. Next, but not least, we have Matt Michener. Matt is currently the Associate Director for Washington State University's Office of Research Support and Operations. He oversees pre-award team, and he is responsible for WSU proposal submissions and award negotiations. Matt is the Region 6 2025 Chair-elect. Congratulations. Former NCURA Region 6 DEI Committee member, former Region 6 Education and Professional Development Committee member, 2021 NCURA Lead Me Program undergraduate, 2022 and 2023 NCURA Lead Me Program co-chair, former editor and contributor to NCURA eExtra. Matt has presented at previous NCURA conferences and to other universities. And he has been on the planning committees for NCURA regional, PRA, and annual meetings. Welcome, Matt. I wanted to extend my gratitude to our panelists for sharing their expertise today. Special thanks to Coltrane, grant manager at KU School of Nursing at the University of Kansas Medical Center, for her contribution to our article and for co-organizing this webinar. Without further ado, I will now pass it over to Laura, who will present our article data. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Collaborate conversation. Last year, the DRA working group focused on remote work for its Collaborate deliverables, and this is the final product. We reached the decision to focus on remote work after looking at various hot topics. We then distributed a survey with the results resulting in the article Remote hybrid work survey reveals research administrators conflicted about pros and cons. Next slide, please. So we have a short poll. Are we not doing the poll? Okay.
So real quick, while we're doing the poll, Trisha, what's your office like?
I am in a central office and we are very remote. Out of the 50 folks, 45 are remote. And then a couple are hybrid and a couple come in every day.
Jason, what about you?
Hey, Matt. I'm in a central office, not campus central, but school central, and we're a mixture of remote and hybrid to provide some equity, and I'll get into that when I speak a little bit later on. But yeah, we're a little mixture.
Awesome. I'm also central. Our post-award office actually no longer has physical offices. They're completely remote. For our pre-award office, my office, we're actually all in office most of the time. But we do have the ability to work remotely when things come up, which is wonderful, which, you know, like we're talking about, we'll talk about some more as we go on.
All right, so we'll move on. Next slide, please. Okay, so it looks like out of everybody that answered, we have 24% that is central remote as being the most, but we have a good spread. Next slide, please. All right, so we looked up some definitions, and one of the working definitions for remote work is a flexible work arrangement where the employee under a written remote work agreement is scheduled to work at an alternative work site and is not expected to work at an agency site on a regular basis. And hybrid work basically means it's mixed, a form of flexible working where workers spend some time at an alternative work site and some work time at an official work site. Next slide, please. So how did we get to the point where we have these different types of work environments? COVID-19 was the biggest factor where a lot of universities shut down and employees worked from home. And then, of course, you can add in the rise of the internet and easier online access, which was led to us being able to work from home during COVID. Next slide. So our survey, we focused on current work, your choice or required, positive and negative for remote and hybrid work, formal policy at institutions, process of granting the right to work remote or hybrid, remote meetings if remote and hybrid work is allowed, onboarding, supporting, and evaluation, and success and challenges. Next slide, please. Here's what we found. Successes. At the time that the article was published, almost 53%, so 52.14% worked hybrid, 30.71% was remote, office, meaning that you're in the office, 15.71%, and other was 1.43%. Almost 82% confirmed that there are remote hybrid work policies, and 84.24% had personally adopted some sort of model. 87.23% expressed positively toward the changes. Next slide, please. Benefits, reduced commute times, and I could go ahead and associate this with saving on gas. More time to submit proposals, enhancing post-award activities, fostered quality family time, solved childcare issues, reduced gas emissions, cultivated healthier work-life equilibrium, and cross-learning in collaboration with counterparts globally. Next slide, please. And the challenges. Policies were broad and did not address onboarding support and evaluation. Due to these broad policies, leaders had flexibility in implementing them. This creates a lack of uniformity across the organizations. Employees often feel a sense of unfairness when some are required to be in the office and others are allowed to work remotely or in a hybrid situation. Old methods for onboarding and training were noted as lacking relevancy. Onboarding new employees into a remote hybrid culture creates challenges, and more effort is required to build some type of office relationship. And there were also work-home life balance challenges. Next slide. And Amanda, I will turn it back over to you to introduce the panelists.
Thank you, Laura, for sharing. Now let's get into our discussion section. As our survey data has shown, working remotely or hybrid working environment setup offers many advantages, but also comes with challenges. Trisha, your office is combination for remote working setting up. So as a leader, what challenges have you experienced?
Thanks, Amanda, and thanks, Laura, for presenting that information from your article. That was great. So some of the things that I've seen as challenges with going remote, full disclosure, I am 100% remote. I live in a different state than my employer. I started full remote in the fall of 2021. It really was my first experience with remote work during the pandemic. My former institution did not go remote. We still were going in the office, and we had plastic like shields up. And so I was also learning how to be remote from colleagues that already were remote. My office, with the office sponsored programs, we've been a leader on campus at Colorado State for working remote. As starting with any position, I was aware of the different learning styles and communication. With the full remote, hybrid, and in office, there is a large combination of the different formats. And I am mature enough in my career to see these challenges and then try to find a strategy for success. One of the big things was that relationship building with the university. That was a very big challenge for having those relationships with the campus when people were used to meeting for lunch or seeing each other at a meeting when we're all in teams. We're a team's school. And so kind of thinking about that, and also, have those assumptions. Don't assume everyone's like me, that this is a work in progress. Shockingly enough, I'm actually a very shy person. And when I came on board, I felt like I was bugging everyone when I was asked, when I needed to ask for help or I had a question, even to my closest colleagues. And as a central office, we have been building relationships with the colleges and departments that fall under my portfolio. I have weekly meetings with my college counterparts to discuss incoming work, and also have monthly meetings with the departments to discuss questions, issues, what comes up from all area. I've found that really with that relationship building challenge, one of the big things is to have communication, have a great communication plan, even if it's informal, on how you're going to be in touch and solve problems and make sure that we all know each other, because that can also change a tone of an email, where if you know the person, that is very helpful. Sometimes these communications don't work, and all you can do is really try to find the right path and to get the job done. The second big challenge that we've had is building that team rapport and really ensuring that folks are not siloed. It can be kind of lonely at times when you're full remote versus used to seeing human beings in the office. And so, like I mentioned before, is building that community and having the ease with colleagues, whether that is, meetings here and there, calling people just to catch up, what's going on. I'm a very avid runner and mountain biker, and I think everybody knew that I was getting a new bike on Friday because I was so incredibly excited. I couldn't stop talking about it. And so Monday morning, people are like, "Where's a picture of your new bike?" And if you're a mountain biker, then you know exactly how important a new bike is. And so, and having all of that and having those relationships, and if relationships get strained, that can be miserable for everyone. So really just trying to keep, again, looping back to that communication, and having all of that open and figuring out the best paths forward and how it works out for you and your colleagues. So Jason, you want to tell us about your work environment and the challenges that you've seen?
Absolutely, thank you. Very quickly, just a huge thank you and shout out once more to Laura and Carla, and especially to Amanda for putting this together. So thank you guys. And hi everyone. If I do look vaguely familiar, I'm the guy who's in that Collaborate photo 3 weeks ago, looking way too happy to be at a meeting. So that's me. Hello. My challenges are pretty unique because 1 year into the pandemic, our school decided to centralize post awards. So I inherited 11 people who worked for 1 year in silos, was disengaged, was not, there was a huge disparity in work experience and skill set. And they did not, and our leadership was making a change where they were trying to get people back into the office and did not want to come back. They were perfectly happy at home. So it was a struggle, as sometimes it was a little bit painful. So we really had to get people to understand, get the staff to understand the importance of, well, we're trying to do two things at one time. We're trying to get people back into the office due to the leadership's decision. And plus, we're trying to centralize everything, trying to get a group together to streamline processes and form a new unit. And doing that at the same time was a huge challenge. So my manager and I were just trying to see if everything's up and down, trying to get people to get the buy-in, see the importance of it. And through this process, we learned two very important things. Number one, to be flexible, and to somehow think of new ways to keep morale up. Because when morale is down, it's very hard to get people to really become part of the team environment. The second challenge was the onboarding of new employees. When we did centralize, we did have a few vacancies, and we're trying to figure out how to do it because on top of, it was a very unique situation. Our leadership wanted people to come back, but we were assigned a new space and there weren't enough, I would say, cubicles for everyone to be in at once. So we had to be remote. Even if there was no pandemic, even if there was no remote work in the world, we had to be hybrid somehow because there was not enough space for everyone to be there. But leadership wanted us to be in. So we had to think of a way to be equitable as far as the in-person schedule. That impacted the onboarding. So we had to get creative. So we have to find new ways to educate and onboard and train new employees, while both through online on Zoom and in person as well. You know, for those who've been around, we've been in research nation for a long time. Nothing really replaces the in-person experience. So the whole through the screen was a bit challenging. Sometimes we had people who couldn't figure out how to share a screen. I know it's ridiculous, but we had a few of those. So it was challenging, and but we made it work somehow, and I'll get into my success stories a little bit later on. Matt?
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Trisha, also for sharing. I also want to thank Amanda, Laura, and Carla for inviting us here today. So it's very honored to be able to work with you guys again. I relate with Trisha and Jason's challenges. I think we all do. I think we've all seen something like that. A few other things that had popped into my mind was it's harder to have a quick face-to-face chat with someone. You just need a quick answer. I can't run down the hall or have that water cooler talk to bust out a problem real quick, or talk out loud with somebody to work through a problem. It's been a bit of a challenge. We've had to find better ways to do it. Trying to find somebody's available on Teams for a quick phone call sometimes. It's a new world. Just blindly calling people. We used to do that on the phone, but doing it on Teams seems a little more personal and invasive in a way for me. So I always try to check to make sure that they're available before I do that call. Another thing that we saw was back to back to back to back meetings without having any time to decompress or take notes or gather yourself after you have that meeting. And we struggled with that. And our poster word director at the time when we went remote, about half a year into being remote, she said she was changing the policy for her department where they would have 5 to 10 minutes after the hour meetings would start. Made a huge difference. I jumped on a call yesterday and I was like, where's everybody? Well, I didn't realize it was starting 5 minutes later, and it's because this State of Washington agency that we're working with starts our meetings 10 minutes after the hour. Completely missed that when I opened my meeting call. So they got on and I said, I'm sorry, was I too early? Was I in the right time? And they reminded me that they were doing the same thing that we'd been doing. So it's been interesting, that's for sure. Amanda?
Thank you, Matt. Communication, problem solving, streamlined processing procedure are always key to succeed. Many thanks to our panelists for sharing. Actually, I transferred to my current role, new institution during pandemic time. As a new manager, I feel there are some challenges, but I really want to thank my supervisor, department chairman, and all leaders for supporting me and guiding me in developing my new team. So I believe my story is not unique. And as our survey also shows, 87.23% of research administrators expressed positivity about the shift to remote and hybrid working environments. Trisha, I will start with you again. So for our next discussion section, what are the most significant successes you have been experienced during this time, and how can they benefit to research administration's operations?
Oh my gosh, we have seen so many successes. So I'm like the #1 cheerleader for remote work. I absolutely love it. Some of the successes we've seen are larger hiring pools with backgrounds. Not all of us are located in large metro areas where there is a large pool of folks with research administration experience. Having that larger hiring pool can really bring more talent to your enterprise, as well as that diversity, which is the different viewpoints on work, I think is really important and great. We recently went through some hiring and I've had some great success there. The other one is I think I know for myself, I spend more time actually working, a lot less chit chat. You know what I'm talking about? That person that's standing in your doorway that just does not take the hint to leave. Is I don't have that. I can be like, gotta go, bye, and in the call. But I'm much more productive as I've been working remotely. And also, as a note, my employer does not expect me to work outside of my set work hours. I have a telework agreement that has the days of the week and the hours that I work. So it's really great to have that boundary. Is just because I'm home does not mean I have to work. I've had comments of that made. They were like, well, I mean, you're home. You can just do it. It's like 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, no, I can't. We close at 5. And so I think there's so many upsides from it. I could go on and on. But one thing I did want to follow up with from our challenges was that I have found that I can get quick answers really easily with Teams. That I can either hit a chat or just give somebody a quick call, depending on what their status is, and get that, and then just move on and keep rolling through work. So Jason, you're in a much more hybrid environment. Why don't you share some of your successes that you've had?
Thanks, Trisha. So as I was saying earlier about our challenges, we're very hybrid, but a few people are fully remote. We have one out-of-state employee who's been with our school for a long time, and we just couldn't bear the thought of not having them as a teammate. So that person is remote, but So how we have addressed the onboarding issue, this is the one success story, is when they initially join our team, they're in the office 3 days a week for the training and the onboarding and to sit with one of our managers or one of our senior administrators to really learn the job. And then they slowly dwindle down to 2 days, 1 day, and eventually it'll be for remote. But that's fully at the discretion of the supervisor. But we do, for those who are remote, we have planned it out where we require everyone to be in 1 day in the office a month. That's our all hands day. And what do? So we really came up with this so that it didn't seem punitive. We didn't make it seem like, oh, you must come in for 1 day out of the month and you must sit in that chair for 8 hours and you got to do it because that's the requirement of the job. We did not want it to be a punitive experience. We want it to be a positive experience. Why? To see your team members, to engage, to go out for lunch. The last 6 months, we've been doing lab tours with our faculty member to really get to know them, get to know their research, put a face to a name, have a more profound appreciation for what they do, and also for them to appreciate what we do for them as well. And it's really been a game changer. The relationship with the faculty members has become stronger. So it's been a positive experience. And sometimes we're planning a picnic for one of the all hands days instead of the office. We're going to go to a park and we're just going to hang out. So it's really focused on what team gets out of it. And, we really want them to look forward to that 1 day in a month where, oh, tomorrow's going to be exciting because I get to see my colleagues. We're going to do some fun. We're going to go out to lunch together. So that's how we're doing it. And it's been really successful. Just last week, we had our meeting and we had 4 conversations going on in our conference table, and I just kind of let it be. And I was just kind of marveling at how awesome is this? Because 3 years ago, with the people who worked in silos, nobody said a thing. It was just crickets. So it's been complete 180, and it's been a wonderful experience. And I just a huge kudos to my 2 managers who's been leading these efforts. And again, huge benefit, huge importance is making sure morale is high, and just offering that flexibility to your staff. Matt?
Thanks, Jason. Jason, I saw this chat going on, and by the way, love the chat, everybody. This is awesome. I'm loving reading the comments. So I'm trying to keep up with comments and listen to everybody speak at the same time. Jason, do you have people living out of state?
I only have one. That was the staff member that I mentioned earlier, who has been with the school for a very long time, and we just could not imagine working without her. So yes, well, we only have one. But
Awesome.
our institution recently changed where that will change policy where it's not so easy to hire new employees from out of state. Yeah.
I will say, so we are designed here in my office at our Pullman campus. My team, we all live in the state or next door in Idaho, which is 8 miles away. That's where I live, actually. So I drive the 8 miles across the border every day. So I'm close by. So I actually come into work. But now I have the ability to be working remote from the other side of the country half the time because that's where my girlfriend lives. So I'm gone now half the time, but I'm still working. So that's been a little different, but but we like to come in. We like being around each other. It's great. Our other campuses that have units much like mine do have people working remote and do have people that work from outside the state. So we see a wide mix. Additionally, this being able to work remote has really allowed us as leaders to be more flexible to our employees' mental health. I've found that if we're flexible with our employees' needs and their desires for being able to have more of a flexible schedule, they're happier, they're less stressed. It really improved their work-life balance. They were able to schedule appointments, take their kids to things, take time for themselves. And they're very appreciative. I've seen, retention has improved, I think, because of this as well, because we're able to cater to our employees' needs and their wants. Onboarding and training, was hard when we first went remote. We had to learn, like Jason and Trisha have been talking about, we had to learn new ways to do things. And we all learned together. My new employees and I learned together how to do these things, and it was a struggle. But because of it, we've really improved our training, not just the materials, but how we do it now. Our training used to be in person. Now it's all virtual. We do 20 sessions twice a year on research administration, from cradle to grave, and that's organized by our office and works with our post-award office, our compliance office, our internal audit, other offices that are central here at WSU. And we work with our department administrators to teach these sessions with us as well. So everybody gets to see a wide range of different experiences and skills. But yeah, it's been interesting. So Amanda, throw it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you all for sharing your invaluable insights. Today, actually, more than 500 research administrators registered for this event. While we only have online 300 capacity, we would like to hear from all of you. Therefore, we collected some commonly asked questions before this webinar, and we would like to dive into more details with you. So next slide, please. Our first question: do you have tips for new research admin who start fully remote and are trying to familiarize themselves with the type of grants and schools and PIs are looking to apply to? Matt, since you participated in and also designed training materials for WSU, can you please provide some feedback?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amanda. Patience. I think patience is the biggest thing that I've learned since going remote. We need to slow down our training. You need to learn how each employee learns, because we all learn differently. We all struggle in different ways, and we all succeed in different ways. So getting to know your employees, taking that time to just talk with them and then listen with them. Listen to listen, don't listen to talk. Really take in what they're saying when they're asking you questions. Ask them what they're struggling with. Ask them what they need help with, because sometimes they're not going to ask you. They're going to be afraid to ask you. So make sure you're reaching out to your newer employees, your newer colleagues that are learning how to do their thing. And then, encourage them to take time to get to know their faculty. Don't just ask their faculty work questions, but get to know them a little bit. Knowing where your faculty succeed and what their likes are can help with work as well. Amanda?
Thank you, Matt. So Trisha and Jason, any additional thoughts?
Yes, Amanda. So if you are the new research administrator who is new to research administration, number one, please do not be afraid to ask questions. Please don't feel like you're bothering anybody. You have every right to ask as many questions as you like. I hope that wherever you are at the institution, they have very engaged leadership who always check in with you, have a very solid onboarding and training plan, and even pair you up with another colleague who may not be a supervisor, but just kind of be a mentor to you. That's so important because, like Matt said, patience is very important. But the other thing that we really find value in is just the feeling of just being part of that team and just feeling really engaged with the entire processes and not just being left alone and just being forwarded emails every once in a while. That is the worst experience any new employee, any new research administrator can possibly have. Just feeling isolated, feeling siloed, and just being sent email, forwarded Not even like no text in the actual email, just FYI. I mean, that's just the worst thing you can do. There's the worst experience a new research administrator can have. So if you are not getting the experience and the engagement, please speak up and address with your supervisor from a to a supervisor. I hope everyone is really having a solid plan to really engage that new employee.
Yeah, and just one point for me to add, as a side note, one of my office mates apparently sees the UPS person outside the window and is very interested in getting his dog biscuit from her, so there could be barking. However, I guess that's a danger of remote. I think on this question, if you're even asking about how to familiarize yourself with the type of grants in school that schools would go for, do your homework. You know, if you're looking for a position, make sure that when you apply for a job that you've done your homework and that you understand what that position is going to do. What type, you know, is it going to be in engineering? Is it going to be education? Like where would you fit? And then try to familiarize yourself with those sponsors at that point as well.
Thank you all for the input. So please, next slide, please. So we will move to next slide. I will start with Jason on this question. When you are responsible for oversight, what systems are the best for ensuring work is being completed and completed accurately?
Thanks, Amanda. So we give a lot of ownership to our staff. We don't micromanage. We don't look over their shoulders. We do check in on them. I personally have a whiteboard that has all the upcoming deadlines of all the RPPRs and whatnot. But we encourage everyone to have their own account fund list for their portfolio. This is more for the post-award team, where pre-awards has a different tracking system as well, where they have not only the accounts and the grant information, but all the deadlines. And we all have access to each other. So and I go into, and you know, we go into comments, but we give a lot of ownership to our staff. So because we want to convey trust. We've had occurrences where, you know, deadlines were missed and we address them accordingly, and we communicate the importance and we remind them of our expectations and the faculty's expectations, because we never want to let it get to the point where faculty are complaining, then that's a little bit too late. So we give a lot of ownership, and we have a spreadsheet with the deadlines, and for pre-awards, it's somewhat process, but that's on a Google sheet where every time a proposal is done, if the analyst responsible for that proposal does a strike through that proposal and deadline, so that we know it's done. So that's how we manage oversight for our grants.
Thank you, Jason. So Matt and Trisha, any additional thoughts to respond to this question?
Trisha, you want to go ahead?
I can. I think, you know, it's the same as in person. You can tell if someone's not doing their job. They won't be accurate. In the proposal world, things won't get submitted, or they'll get submitted sloppily. And that will make its way back to whoever the supervisor is, just as it would in person, because we're not handing papers to each other. And the PIs definitely would make you aware. So I don't think that's an issue at all.
Yeah, I don't have time to micromanage. I don't think any of us do, and nobody likes to be micromanaged. I'm lucky because with our systems, I can see what my team is working on. I can see what my colleagues at the other campuses are working on, because we have a home-built system. So I can tell if somebody's getting swamped. I also, you know, walk around and I check in on my employees when I'm in person. We also have a Teams chat going through for our team that we are talking in nonstop all day, every day. Some of it's work, some of it's not work. And so we still have that water cooler talk going on nonstop, but we can switch to work-related items at the drop of a hat. So it's really easy to know where people are at. And if they're getting swamped, I encourage my team and I encourage my colleagues, you know, if I'm swamped, I'm going to ask for some help, and I ask them to do the same, so we can spread the love and we can spread the word. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you. So yes, I do think teamwork, ask for help are important and spur our work, love, and to support each other. So our next question is related to how to track the activities. So next question is, how do we know someone is working and is tracking activity morally acceptable? So I would like to start this question with Trisha. How do you think?
Yeah, we don't measure people's keystrokes or track every website or anything that they go to. I worked a long time ago in an organization that did that. However, it was not in research administration. But is that, like I kind of said before, you can tell if people are working or if they're not. Like they're going to answer their emails or they're not. It's going to be very delayed. And then sometimes you have to have those tough conversations as to what's going on. But you can, I think the big thing is you can really tell. And on the morally side, if someone's going to watch Netflix on their computer or surf the internet all day, I have encountered that in person quite a bit, as I have as well as remote. And so it is, how are they able to manage their workload, and then making sure that you can get those passed for success so that they can get that workload completed and figure out the best way for them to do that. Matt, Jason, what about you guys?
Yeah, I'll go next. So I think starting this way, it really conveys a message of distrust. And I don't think any office or any work environment that will be supportive of a positive work culture wants to do this. Because it's just sending a huge message of distrust. We don't trust you, so we're going to track you. That's just stepping off on a completely wrong foot. Again, ownership is big with us. Everyone's got deadlines. So if they're not meeting deadlines, it's going to show. If they're, all of us for remote or even hybrid, we all have what's called, at our institution, we have a remote work agreement. So even if you're remote one day, you still have to sign that work agreement, and it's got stipulations. And you have to put an address down where you'll be actually working remote, not just some random place. So if anyone abuses that, it will show. It will reveal itself. I've one time had to call an impromptu Zoom, and then we found someone in the car. Or someone else was not at home, so they were in some random office. So it will show if they start abusing that trust. It will show if they are in violation of such an agreement. We do not track. We trust that the employees are doing the right thing and abiding by their work agreement and meeting expectations. But no, I don't think this is a great way to. This is a good message to send to employees.
I'm just gonna echo Trisha and Jason's comments. I don't have to track anything. I can look and see what work's being done, just as our other managers at our other campuses can do as well for their teams. And yeah, if something, no, I'm everybody, no, I'm loving the chat, everybody. I'm going to say it again. It's really interesting. I think we all feel kind of the same way. You're going to be able to tell if the work's not getting done. Your faculty are going to reach out to you. Our partners, our collaborators, Jason's going to reach out to me if I'm sitting on a contract from UCI for 3 weeks. I'm going to
believe it.
And the feds are going to reach out. Our state funded agencies, our foundations, all of those external funders, we're going to hear from people. So yeah, we don't track keystrokes like Jason was talking about either. Yeah, it's demoralizing. Really, that was a good comment in the chat, by the way. Amanda, back to you.
Thank you all very much. And also mentioning the trust is the foundation of the teamwork. So thank you very much. And our next question, please. Okay, How do you handle conflicts of misunderstandings that arise in remote or hybrid working environment? So I would like to have Matt on this question first, and then Trisha and Jason can jump in.
Sure. Conflict is hard between not just your team members, but our researchers, our other employees across campuses. Sometimes we have to have those conversations with, if it's not an employee that's in your office, you know, reaching out to their managers, sometimes it has to happen. I do it in a very respectful way. I ask to have a phone call. I don't put it into an email. I always like to start with a phone call to see if we can resolve it quickly. And then if we have to go to email, then we'll go to email to make it official. But a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding, and putting things in a text message or a Teams chat, you can't hear the tone. So having that call, even if it's just a phone call or a Teams call or a Zoom call, I always encourage to start each meeting with just some light banter and just chit chat before we get going into the nitty gritty of stuff. I found that's a real good icebreaker. Trisha, what about you?
No matter, I think it's really the same way, is like, depending on the level of the issue, it work its way the same way it would through whatever the appropriate institutional procedures are. You know, if you get past that initial conversation, we definitely try to start meetings. And then to the allotted time, to be respectful of people's time. But yeah, pretty much exactly about the same thing, just so that you can get to know. That goes back to kind of that communication and team building and community, and it does help when you're able to have just a little bit of extra conversation. Jason?
Thanks, Trisha. You know, normally we're so used to having these conversations when we have to like sort things out because there's a misunderstanding or someone's feelings were hurt in person. We don't, in the current work environment, we don't necessarily have the luxury of doing so we have to do it online. A heart-to-heart one-on-one is always good. You never want to call anybody out in the group. You never want to, you know, from a supervisor perspective, leadership perspective, you never want to respond to an email right away. Let's let it sit, process, think about it, and, you know, maybe get into why there could have been a misunderstanding. Also from a leadership perspective, and also from anybody, you know, I mean, we have to be really mindful of how we write things, how we compose our emails. You know, and when you get to the point of having that conversation to really address that misunderstanding or a conflict, really listen first, and you know, try to have a different perspective instead of trying to really have an overbearing, just kind of impose one's argument against whatever conflict that was. Because at the end of the day, people may not always remember what your name or what you look like, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And when it comes to resolving and addressing conflicts and understandings, that's just very key. So, Amanda?
Thank you very much, Jason. So I would like to ask whether Trisha or Matt any additional add to this one is or we can move to next two questions, because I think we got all touched for the key points, right? Okay. Andrew, next. Thank you. Okay, so our next question is, how do you measure the success and the productivity of remote teams? So we will start with Trisha. So how do you measure this field?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, is the job getting done, and is it a pleasant place to be? No one wants to work in an unpleasant environment. But really, that one of those big successes, and to measure that productivity, is at the end of the day, is everything completed on time to the best of the ability? Are there any issues? How are we able to work through it? Having that cohesive environment. What about you guys, Matt?
I think you nailed it. You know, is the work getting done? Are we getting the proposals submitted on time? Are we getting the awards signed? Are we getting the agreement signed? Are the NDAs in place? All that kind of stuff. And is your team happy? Or do they come to work and they go, oh my God, I'm here. So, you know, I like to see smiling faces. Another benefit of working in office, but at the same time, I get to be on calls when I'm not here and still get to see people's smiling faces. I love to see those smiling faces, and I always encourage, you know, when we have our meetings for people to be on video so we can see you. If somebody has a real problem with that, I just ask them to reach out to me to let me know so that I can take their feelings into consideration, because I think that's very important. You know, that goes back to that mental health thing.
We have that where we do have video on meetings, so that we can all see each other and just make sure everybody's there, and you can read the meeting a little bit better at times if you can see people's faces, versus not.
Jason?
Thanks, Matt, Trisha. Yeah, same as what Matt and Trisha shared. I think we all have processes and systems in place at our institutions where we know if something got done, whether a work was processed and set up, or whether a report was submitted or projection has been done. I'm sure we all have shared folders in the cloud that where we can access and see the folders of all the PIs and whatnot. So I think it's relatively easy to see whether a task was done or not. As far as measuring the success, I echo what Matt said. It's really, you know, how satisfied is everyone with their job? Do they feel overwhelmed? Or do they or is what's on their plate manageable? And I think it's, as leaders, we have to really assess and really be mindful of just what is on everyone's plate and how well or poorly they're handling it. And if they're struggling, you have to step in and really help and deep dive in how to assess the situation. But hopefully everyone's in a good place. Hopefully there's nobody working extreme hours. But success is really measured by morale, I think. Morale of your team members. So back to you, Amanda.
Thank you all for sharing. And we will have the last final questions for this section. We will start with Trisha. And next slide, please. Okay, our question is, what role does company culture play in the success of a remote hybrid work environment, and how do you nurture it?
Thanks. I think this is a really important item and topic to think of, is that if the culture does not accept remote work, that is a really difficult barrier to try and overcome. I can tell you, when I started remote, there were certain meetings that I went to where people would tell me they didn't believe in remote work, as we're all in a Teams meeting. And I was just like, okay, all right, I can definitely know we're going to have some relationship building here. But then 2.5 years later, we've had a significant increase to remote, and a lot more people have accepted it, seeing that it does work. It does help with your retention issues. It can keep people happier, even if it's a hybrid, it's 2 days a week. People are like, you know, I'm happy with that. I'm not paying as much in parking. There's incredible expenses with that. And so that, you know, always I think that our culture is changing, and the financial impact is known on remote, is that space is, I've seen it in the chat here. It's not just for places I've worked, but space is constantly an issue. And that if there's a way to bring that footprint down, bring leases down, or however your institution has space allocated, and, you know, just really think about that past 4 years, we've had remote become so much more of the norm versus the complete outlier in our working structures. So how do you guys, Matt and Jason, what do you think about that culture having that role in the success of our work environments?
I'll go first. Thank you, Trisha. I think it really depends on, you know, how supportive is senior leadership as far as staff. you know, it happens at our school too. Too often when they're very quick to celebrate successes of faculty, but they're not very quick to celebrate successes of staff. Like we always get no mention. So it's, but fortunately in my unit, my boss, our leadership is very supportive. We get a very generous budget for staff development and travel and conference travel. When they found that the whole getting 3 years ago, when they were trying to bring people back, they got a lot of pushback from staff because they felt like it was more of a punitive efforts instead of a supportive effort. So they changed their decision to be more flexible. So they encouraged all the managers and leaders to provide flexibility and accommodate more to your staff. So that's been a huge game changer for us. So so senior leadership supports enables managers to provide
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
to provide a work environment that that would really support your staff. So that's been our key focus there. Matt, how about you?
It really starts with upper leadership and trickles down. When we first started talking about coming back into office, there was some push to make sure that everybody came back into the office. And certain people said, if that happens, I don't know if I'll be coming back to the office or to the job. So I've heard that from quite a few colleagues that they ran into that. Our upper leadership is very supportive. My boss has said as long as he can reach me, he's happy. He's very supportive, and I try to do the same thing with my team. I really appreciate my team. I value my team. I want them to be happy. So I try to support them in any way that I can, because I can't do my job without them. And I don't think any of us can do our jobs alone. So, being able to support each other, not just in the office, but, so for us to all support each other that are on this call across, the world, no matter where you're working at, I know I can reach out to people on this call. And I think that's kind of what I've learned a lot more during the past 4 or 5 years with the remote world and hybrid world coming into play is, being supportive, being patient. Back to you, Amanda.
Thank you all very much, and thank you, Matt, for being supportive, being patient, and also being loved, and being a good listener, and to know team and to support each other. So thank you all very much. And now we're going to our next section is open Q&A section. So we will get some questions from chat and start to discuss. So I think before we go to the question, the first question actually related to our poll question. What is others? So when we design this survey, actually others is for consulting firm and other kind of forms not related to academic university and the research institution. So this is we put others. And so if you have any other input, please feel free to let us know. So next question actually is related to how to write email emoji. So the question is, do you feel it's professional per emoji in the emails? So we can start with Jason.
You're muted, Jason.
Sorry, Amanda, I was I got a would you please repeat the question? I had something in the background.
some people like to put emoji in the emails, a happy face and love and cheerful. So how do you feel whether or not this is professionalism to put it into the?
Yeah, I think it's okay as long as it's, we use good judgment and nothing too over the top or a little, it can be, there are some emojis that can send the wrong message. It can be inappropriate. So as long as you use good judgment, I personally like to use GIFs, GIFs, where when I know that person and their interest, and I'm comfortable with, they know me well enough that when I send an image like that, where it's like a thank you or you're awesome, that they appreciate and they laugh at it instead of saying, "Ooh, that was kind of weird," right? So if you send it, you got to know that person well enough so they don't take it the wrong way, and again, use good judgment. But I think it's perfectly okay.
I can I'm a very direct communicator. And I was given the advice probably 12 or 13 years ago to put smiley faces in my email. And I had a very different reaction to it because I felt like if I was not a female, I would not be asked to do that. So I generally put anything in there. And I was a lot younger then. But it depends, like, I'll put some gifts in chat if there are people that I'm closer with. But I actually try to avoid them if at all possible, unless it is a very tense situation and I'm trying to really relay, like, think about this, try to move forward.
So real quick, looks like Beth has a question. Beth, 1 second. I just want to kind of comment real quick here on what Trisha and Jason said. I think I'm kind of, Trisha, I hear you. Is it professional? I know I wait until I get to know somebody. I really do. And if they start using emojis, I'll use emojis. I call everybody, if they're a doctor, I call them doctor, vice chancellor, until they start using their first name, then I'll start using my first, then I'll start to call them by their first name. So I really follow what I'm led to by the person I'm working with. And sometimes we have serious conversations and it's nice to put an emoji in at the end because, we need to lighten it up a little bit after we've had a tough few emails or meetings. But yeah, it really is knowing who you're talking with, who are you conversing with. I think it's very important.
Thank you all. So Beth, please unmute yourself and have your question.
Thank you. I just want to do one, the emoji question was also mine because it was something I struggled with a few years ago. And I ended up deciding, you know what, I'm overall an upbeat, positive person. Whether I know them or not, I want them to have a good day with a smiley face. And so I set the tone by trying to end all my emails with that, whether they know me or not, a little smiley face. So that's been my approach recently. So my question, the next question I wanted to ask is about Zoom fatigue. I manage 7 people, 5 of them work in another state. And overall, I think it's worked very well, but especially for people that have been working in such a situation for so long, Zoom fatigue is real and there's been some struggles there. So I was wondering if anyone had any advice on ways to help mitigate that.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say,
Go ahead, Trisha. Go ahead.
I like having it a 45 to 50-minute meeting versus an hour-long meeting so that you can take a break. I sadly have like my station set up so that I don't have to move. I also have a walking desk, which is very helpful. Now, I mean, it might bug other people in meetings because I move side to side, but I think, yeah, that's definitely one of the big ones for me is to try to shorten meetings, make sure we have good agendas set so that we can, have quick, have everybody going, and then let's get to business and get moving on. What about you, Jason? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No worries, Trisha. So in a group setting, we do try to lighten it up, not be all serious and not be all business. In a one-on-one, I know everyone is just burdened with deadlines and due dates, and you don't want to, occupy an hour of their day or even more when they could be using that time to get things done. If I know that if I get a sense that they've had a long day already and it's only 1 p.m. and they've already sat on 3 Zoom calls, then I kind of shift gears. Maybe it's just a phone call. So, or well, they can just talk to me while they're actually doing something, or I just keep it to a Teams chat and we just kind of like continue the conversation throughout the day. And if they don't respond for half an hour, then I know they're working, but I also know that they have other things going on, and I just kind of give them that space, and we continue that conversation when they're able. And that's worked out pretty well as well. I try not to, and I encourage, our team to not try to just completely occupy an hour of their day, because that's when we must do it. It's a reoccurring meeting. I think it's really it kind of borders on being unfair, and it's not very supportive. So yeah.
Beth, I'll jump in real quick as well. I deny meeting invites if I think I'm getting too full and I'm not going to be able to do my normal day-to-day stuff. I tell people, I'm like, I can't meet for a few days. I understand you think this is very timely for you, but I have other people who have timely things as well. So I have to prioritize, and I have to set a reasonable expectation of when things can get done. We all know our faculty want everything done right now, but we have to let them know things are going to take a few days or weeks sometimes, depending on what we're looking at. So I'm not afraid to reject meetings. I need to keep my own mental health as well. And if I have 8 meetings in a day, I will tell you right now, when I leave this office and I get home, I do not feel good. So I really encourage that. I encourage, my team to not overwhelm themselves with meetings. So if somebody says they can't meet, I say, okay, when can you meet? Great question, Beth, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one question from Lacey. Is what ways has remote work increased, contribute to positivity and diverse and inclusive in your units? So the question related to the remote work increased and contribute to the DEI. So Matt, since you were DEI committee member, so I'll start with you.
Why do I have to go first? I think it's great because we are getting candidates from all walks of life. I think, I bet Trisha and Jason and tons of people on this call that I know have seen the same thing. We are seeing all kinds of candidates now, and I'm on other search committees that are outside of my office because they're for leadership roles in different colleges or departments that we interact with a lot. So they want to get outside perspectives. So that they usually grab a few of us from other units, and we're seeing a lot more diversity because of the online world, which is great because where we are at in Pullman, Washington is kind of in the middle of nowhere. So we can't get that big diversity. We can now because of the hybrid and remote ability, and it's great. Our post-award director lives in Colorado. She works remotely. She comes to campus a few times a year. But we never would have been so lucky to get her if we didn't have this hybrid and remote ability. It's great. Trisha, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. Our job candidates, our pools are really a lot larger and much more diverse in experience. We have people in all time zones, and it is up to so the hours they work may or may not be mountain, kind of depends on what their position is. If they're submitting proposals, there's the expectation that you may have to stay until 5. At our institution, we are not expected to work if the deadline is 11:59 p.m. We're not expected to work until then. The deadline would need to be 5 p.m. We have some great work-life balance, and those boundaries set by upper management that it's not, like I've said previously, just because you're at home doesn't mean you're expected to be sitting at your desk waiting. And so that has been amazing. But yeah, just the viewpoints have been great, and the experiences that everyone has brought in. Jason?
Thanks, Trisha. Our team workforce is not as diverse as far as the remote aspect. We only truly have one remote employee. The majority of the team are local, but they do work remotely most of the time. So I think the flexibility has really helped us in terms of retention. The staff really appreciate the flexibility and what we do for them. That being said, we have had our share of turnovers, and it continues to be a struggle. But through each processes and through each hiring and through each departure, we learn something new, and we hope to grow from that experience continuously. So, back to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Jason. So we have, okay, Matt, please.
Amanda, can I just jump in here real quick? Because this has come up a few times in the chat, talking about F&A.
Yes, this is what I
Okay.
also I want to start with you for this question. What about F&A indirect costs?
So I think that is an entire topic that could be a whole nother session to discuss. I will say, because space survey is a big part of getting your rate agreement in place, right? Well, how much space do you have now? What is the space being used for research? The research actually still needs space most of the time, right? For labs. So I don't think our rate agreements are going to change a whole lot, because that's not where the research is being done. It also depends on how you do your rate agreements. We're right in the middle of doing ours right now, so it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. So I can tell you in a year what it's like. But I really don't foresee it being a big change. The other question that comes up quite frankly from our researchers is saying, well, I work remotely at home, so that's off campus. And I say, no, you choose to work from home. Your lab is on campus. Your college is on campus. That's an on-campus rate. You are using WSU resources to do the job from your house. So that's not off campus. And that conversation has come up a few times. And I don't know, Trisha and Jason, have you run into that as well?
Definitely. And we're still I'm using CSU property, resources. I just sit in a different place. But even when I have gone down to Fort Collins on my own choice, and I just took my computer and hit it in the dock just like I would at home. So it's all of the same resources, that all the IT, all of that is exactly the same.
Thanks, Trisha. That hasn't really come up on our campus. I mean, our F&A is still relatively low at 57, hasn't been renegotiated since 2019. It's due for renegotiation. I'm curious as to know how the whole remote workforce has going to impact our next negotiations as far as F&A. So, but that really hasn't come up on our campus, not yet. Back to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you all. Brianna, since your camera is on, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I actually do have a question. My name is Brianna Vasquez. I'm a compliance officer at the University of Chicago. So I'm like you, Trisha. I live out of state. I don't live in Illinois. I'm in Texas. But I've been in grant management for close to a little bit over 8 years. So my question to you, or to anyone who would like to answer, in my experience, I know at my previous roles, there was a lot of hesitancy with remote work. There was a lot of leadership not accepting of it. It was very much that firm belief of you need to be at your desk to show that you're doing your work, that mentality, right? So my question is, we deal with leadership who they're constantly wanting to recruit faculty, for growing their research, but they don't want to invest in their research administration staff and grow as well. So how did you guys navigate having to show your leadership that, if you want us to grow or become an R1 or what have you, we need to invest in our research administration as well?
Oh God, you're preaching to the choir.
Right? That's always that constant battle in my experience, the back and forth in the argument. And, you know, they just kind of leave us to the wayside.
I have thoughts on this, but Trisha, why don't you go first before, so I can calm down?
Yeah. I think it's a constant battle, and it's having to show increases in workload and being able to track the work, and however you may do that, and then making sure that you can get the right person to hear you, because no one, you know, having new lines costs a lot of money. And whether they're sitting in, for me, in Fort Collins, or they're sitting like I am in the state of Montana, like that is a hard one, and that takes the very top leadership to understand and to value what we do. A lot of people, they, in my experience, and particularly they don't really know how the sausage is made. They just know that it came out and that everything's fine, and that what it really takes to get to that point. And so I think a lot of that is that communication, and then being able to show that, man, you know, we've had 40% increase in the number of awards over the past X years. You know, we have had a 0% increase in human beings. There's something could happen. So yeah. All right, Matt, you calm down yet?
Yeah. We have an interim VPR right now, who is an experienced researcher and knows our office very well, and he knows us all, and he's very supportive. But as a state institute, we need money, and so we are doing, and I'm probably sure that almost every single person on this call is in the same situation, where if your institute had more money to give you, then you could get more people. So I'm, run metrics. I show the increase in emails that come to our central inbox for the past 10 years. I built reports to show that. I can generate reports on how many awards and proposals we've done, not just dollars, but the numbers of how many we've submitted. And I can show that increase going every year, but yet where's our staffing at? How is it increasing compared to the workload? It's metrics. It's metrics. You have to put something on paper to present for your argument to support the reason why you need more people. And we all talk about how, gosh, I need more people. Well, you got to prove it. And I'm trying to prove it. I think we all do. And I know our upper administrators, our leadership teams appreciate us, but we're still quite busy.
Absolutely, I agree. Very busy. I know, one of the main reasons why I left my previous role was to go into an environment where that culture and leadership was very supportive of that. So that is very much important, where you have that leadership who is supporting you, your AVP, your VPR, very much important. But thank you for answering and clarifying.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on this as well. So I actually lost 3 FTEs in the last 3 years. It's been brutal. In the beginning, do more with less is preached, and now we're hearing something so ridiculous: do less with less. I don't even know what that means. To have our work, but yeah, I know, Vincent, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. What is that? And so, luckily, fortunately, we have an incredible boss, who was former department chair, now associate dean for research. He went to senior leadership and said, "Don't even think about cutting any more FTEs. These people are at their wits' end of their work bandwidth, and if you want them to leave, this is the best way to get them to leave." So, so we have that, and we kind of, we're managing that situation right now. But yeah, having someone with a strong voice and who has a presence and who has influence really stand up for you makes a huge difference. So, yeah, back to you, Amanda.
Okay, thank you all so much. And thank you for all the great questions chat conversation, as well as our panelists, Tom and Sherry. So as our meeting is nearing its end, I know there are still a lot of good questions, discussions were ongoing, and please feel free to send your question to Andre. We will collect it and try to answer offline. And now I will pass it over to Laura for closing remarks.
Thank you, Amanda. I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. We hope you got some good information and ideas from our discussion.